The ancient world was a stage for epic conflicts, none more consequential than the series of wars between Rome and Carthage. These three conflicts, known as the Punic Wars, spanned more than a century of bloodshed and strategic maneuvering. At the heart of the struggle was the control of the Mediterranean, the lifeblood of trade and power. Rome, a burgeoning republic on the Italian peninsula, was a formidable land-based power. Its legions were disciplined, relentless, and had conquered most of Italy. Across the sea, the city of Carthage, located in modern-day Tunisia, was a maritime empire. Founded by Phoenicians, Carthage dominated trade routes with its powerful navy and vast wealth. The First Punic War erupted in 264 BC, not from a direct confrontation, but from a dispute in Sicily. The strategic island of Sicily, a breadbasket and a crossroads, became the primary theater of war. Rome, possessing a negligible navy, faced a monumental challenge against Carthage's seafaring might. In an incredible feat of engineering and determination, the Romans constructed a massive fleet. They reverse-engineered a captured Carthaginian quinquereme to build their own vessels. But ships alone were not enough. The Romans needed to overcome their inexperience at sea. Their ingenious solution was the corvus, a large boarding bridge with a heavy spike. This device allowed Roman soldiers to board enemy ships and turn a naval battle into a land fight. The Battle of Mylae in 260 BC marked Rome's first major naval victory, a stunning upset. The war raged on for years, with victories and devastating losses for both sides. Rome even attempted a daring invasion of North Africa, which ultimately ended in a disastrous defeat. Storms also proved to be a deadly enemy, with the Roman fleet being destroyed multiple times. Despite the setbacks, Roman perseverance was unyielding. They rebuilt their fleets time and again, refusing to concede the seas. The decisive engagement came at the Battle of the Aegates Islands in 241 BC. A new, more agile Roman fleet, without the cumbersome corvus, outmaneuvered the Carthaginians. This victory cut off Carthaginian forces in Sicily and forced Carthage to sue for peace. The terms were harsh. Carthage had to abandon Sicily and pay a massive indemnity to Rome. Sicily became Rome's first overseas province, a significant step in its imperial expansion. The end of the war left Carthage weakened and in turmoil. A brutal conflict known as the Mercenary War erupted when Carthage couldn't pay its soldiers. Rome took advantage of this chaos to seize Sardinia and Corsica from the vulnerable Carthaginians. This act of opportunism fostered deep resentment in Carthage. From this bitterness rose the Barcid family, sworn enemies of Rome. Hamilcar Barca began to carve out a new Carthaginian empire in Hispania. After Hamilcar's death, his son-in-law Hasdrubal the Fair continued this expansion. Then, in 221 BC, leadership fell to Hamilcar's son, a military genius named Hannibal. Hannibal consolidated Carthaginian control in Hispania, preparing for a future war. The spark for the Second Punic War came in 219 BC with the siege of Saguntum. Saguntum was an ally of Rome, and its capture was a direct challenge. Rome declared war, expecting to fight once again in Hispania and Africa. But Hannibal had a far more audacious and unexpected plan. He decided to take the war to the heart of Italy itself. In one of the most legendary feats in military history, Hannibal marched his army across the Alps. The journey was brutal, with thousands of men and animals lost to the cold and difficult terrain. But a diminished yet determined Carthaginian army emerged into the plains of northern Italy. The Romans, caught completely by surprise, scrambled to assemble their forces. At the Battle of the Trebia, Hannibal inflicted the first of several crushing defeats on the Romans. His tactics were brilliant, using the terrain and his versatile army to his advantage. In 217 BC, he ambushed and annihilated a Roman army at the Battle of Lake Trasimene. The defeat sent a wave of panic throughout Rome. In this moment of crisis, Quintus Fabius Maximus was appointed dictator. Fabius implemented a new strategy, avoiding direct battle with Hannibal's superior forces. This Fabian strategy of harassment and attrition earned him the nickname the Delayer. While unpopular, this strategy allowed Rome to recover and regroup. But the Romans grew impatient with Fabius's cautious approach. In 216 BC, new consuls were elected who promised a decisive battle to crush Hannibal. They marched a massive army, the largest Rome had ever assembled, to confront the Carthaginians. The two forces met on the plains near a town called Cannae. Hannibal, though heavily outnumbered, devised a masterful tactical plan. He arranged his infantry in a crescent, with his weaker Gallic and Spanish troops in the center. As the powerful Roman center advanced, the Carthaginian line deliberately gave way. This drew the Roman legions into a trap, pulling them deeper and deeper into the Carthaginian formation. Then Hannibal's elite African infantry, positioned on the wings, swung inwards. Simultaneously, his superior cavalry, having routed their Roman counterparts, attacked the Roman rear. The Roman army was completely surrounded, with no hope of escape. The result was one of the greatest slaughters in military history. Cannae was a catastrophe for Rome, a day of immense national mourning. Many of Rome's southern Italian allies defected to Hannibal's side. It seemed as though Rome was on the brink of total collapse. Yet, even in this darkest hour, the core Roman spirit did not break. Rome refused to negotiate with Hannibal, raising new legions from boys and even slaves. Hannibal, lacking saga equipment and sufficient manpower, did not march on Rome itself. The war in Italy devolved into a stalemate, with Rome slowly regaining its strength. Meanwhile, Rome opened a new front, sending armies to Hispania. A young and brilliant general, Publius Cornelius Scipio, took command of the Roman forces there. Scipio, whose father and uncle had been killed fighting the Carthaginians, was a natural leader. In a surprise attack in 209 BC, he captured the main Carthaginian base of New Carthage. Hasdrubal Barca, Hannibal's brother, managed to lead an army into Italy to help his brother. However, the Romans intercepted his messengers and learned of his plans. At the Battle of the Metaurus River in 207 BC, Hasdrubal's army was destroyed and he was killed. The news was delivered to Hannibal in the most gruesome way. His brother's head was thrown into his camp. This was a devastating blow to Hannibal's cause in Italy. With Hispania secured, Scipio proposed a bold, new strategy: invade Africa. In 204 BC, a Roman army led by Scipio landed on the shores of North Africa. Scipio's campaign was highly successful, winning allies and defeating Carthaginian armies. Panicked, the Carthaginian Senate recalled Hannibal from Italy to defend the homeland. After 15 years, the great Carthaginian general finally left the land he had terrorized. The final, decisive confrontation of the war was at hand. In 202 BC, the armies of Scipio and Hannibal met at the Battle of Zama. Hannibal's army included many raw recruits and his famous war elephants. Scipio, however, had devised a tactic to counter the elephant charge. As the elephants charged, the Roman legionaries blew loud horns and opened lanes in their formation. The panicked elephants rampaged through the Carthaginian lines instead. Scipio's superior Roman and Numidian cavalry then drove the Carthaginian horsemen from the field. The infantry battle was long and brutal, a contest between seasoned veterans on both sides. But the return of Scipio's cavalry to attack Hannibal's infantry from the rear sealed the victory. Hannibal's army was destroyed, and he himself barely escaped. The Battle of Zama was a complete and total victory for Rome. Carthage was forced to accept another humiliating peace treaty. It lost all its overseas territories, its navy was dismantled, and it had to pay another crippling indemnity. Carthage was also forbidden from waging war without Rome's permission. The Second Punic War was over, and Rome was the undisputed master of the Western Mediterranean. For the next 50 years, a tense peace existed between a dominant Rome and a recovering Carthage. Carthage, stripped of its military, focused on trade and experienced a remarkable economic revival. This renewed prosperity, however, was viewed with suspicion and fear in Rome. One senator in particular, Cato the Elder, became the voice of this fear. After every speech, regardless of the topic, Cato would famously declare, "Carthago delenda est." This phrase meant Carthage must be destroyed. Rome's ally, King Massinissa of Numidia, repeatedly encroached on Carthaginian territory. Bound by the treaty, Carthage could not defend itself without Roman permission, which was never granted. Finally, in 151 BC, Carthage raised an army to defend itself against Numidian aggression. This was the pretext Rome had been waiting for. Rome declared war in 149 BC, beginning the Third Punic War. The Romans demanded that the Carthaginians abandon their city and move inland. This was a death sentence for a people who lived by the sea, and they refused. The citizens of Carthage resolved to defend their home to the very last. The siege of Carthage began, a brutal and desperate struggle. For 3 years, the Carthaginians mounted a heroic defense of their city. The Roman general Scipio Aemilianus, the adopted grandson of Scipio Africanus, was given command. He tightened the siege, building a mole to block the city's harbor. The Carthaginians, starving but defiant, secretly dug a new channel to the sea. In the spring of 146 BC, the final Roman assault began. The fighting was brutal, moving from house to house, street to street. For 6 days and nights, the city was a scene of unrelenting carnage. Finally, the last defenders holding out in the citadel of Byrsa surrendered. Scipio Aemilianus reportedly wept as he looked upon the destruction of the great city. He quoted a line from Homer, fearing that Rome itself might one day suffer the same fate. The Roman Senate, however, showed no such sentiment. The city of Carthage was systematically and utterly demolished. The survivors, once citizens of a proud empire, were sold into slavery. Legend says that the Romans then sowed the land with salt to ensure nothing would ever grow there again. The territory of Carthage became the new Roman province of Africa.it. The Punic Wars were over, and Rome's ancient rival was erased from existence. Rome's victory was total, establishing its absolute supremacy over the entire Mediterranean world. This victory paved the way for the expansion of the Roman Republic and, eventually, the Roman Empire. The clash between the land-based elephant of Rome and the seafaring whale of Carthage had ended. The legacy of these wars would shape the course of Western civilization for centuries to come.